What is up, you guys? I'm Sid, and I have been meaning to research this for probably a couple years. So I am an Akashic Records reader. I am like a galactic historian, if you want to call it that. This is like the new term for it. But basically, I intuitively tap into these star systems, and also I look at people, I look them in the eyes, and I can tell what past lives I believe they have had in these other star systems. I look at some people and I'm like, wow, you have had Pleiadian past lives, or wow, you have had Sirian past lives, or Alpha Beta Centauri past lives, or what have you. I also look at fixed star galactic astrology, and that backs this up. I believe fixed stars that we have aspects to in our birth chart, we have had past incarnations in as well. So over the past few years, I have gotten information intuitively about these different star systems. Hence the term galactic history comes into play. But it's interesting because some of these star systems feel like they were more of a back in the day type thing, like Fomalhaut. That was poppin' back in the day. It was really populated. There was lots of people having this kind of vacation life in Fomalhaut in the constellation of Pisces. Tau Ceti is another one that was really popular back in the day, but now it feels like it's not really incarnated. Orion was super popular very recently, actually, in the grand scheme of things, and now there's still stuff like lingering and going on. It feels really polluted from wars in Orion currently. There's definitely beings living in some areas, but it's not nearly how it was really just, I don't know how many years a few is, but like a few years ago, okay? Lyra obviously was really popular a long time ago, and since then it's been pretty much uninhabited, once again pretty polluted. Now it is like not polluted and it's starting to come back. The call has been put out that it's ready to go. We're just finalizing some things on Earth and these other big projects, and then Lyra can be poppin' once again. The Pleiades, Sirius, Arcturus are all very popular places right now. I've done a video on why certain star systems are more popular, because they're more populated right now, or because they have a great involvement with Earth compared to some other star systems. I've done a video on that. I'll leave that linked in the description of this video. However, I have been meaning to research, to see if there is a correlation between those stars' life cycles and their popularity in terms of like linear time, to see if that's possible to see. And I guess my research didn't show me exactly what I thought it was going to. I'm not going to totally discredit my theory because I really don't know, but I'm going to share with you guys what I found, okay? Basically, I was looking to see, like, is Fomalhaut even a star anymore? Like, did it explode a while ago? What happened there? Why are people not really incarnated there like they used to? Are stars in the Pleiades star cluster? Are stars in the Sirian star system? Are stars in the Lyra constellation going to still have lots of life left to them, and that's why they're so popular right now? What about Tau Ceti? Because Tau Ceti was super popular back in the day, and I feel like now it's still kind of like died out in terms of popularity, but it's going to make a comeback pretty soon. So what's that star's life cycle like? Just wanted to look and see, because I took astronomy in school. I remember learning about stars' life cycles. However, I don't remember anything about it. Like, I remember that I did learn it. I just don't remember any of the information, if I'm being honest. So I guess to start this video out, let's go over stars' life cycles. We're going to talk about 3 different types of stars: high mass stars, medium mass stars, and low mass stars. So let's go over the high mass stars first. All of these are going to start off with a gas and dust cloud. That's how all stars form, allegedly. So we've got the gas and dust cloud, then we move into the massive blue star. Okay, if it's a high mass star, it's going to start off being a massive blue star. Then the star expands and cools, because blue means super hot. Red means not as hot, okay? So the star expands and cools, and then it turns into eventually a red supergiant because it's a high mass. So we're going to expand and cool, turn into a red supergiant. Then eventually the star explodes, supernova. And then after the supernova, it can either turn into a black hole or a neutron star. And so these high mass stars only last millions of years. That sounds like a long time. It is. But compared to the medium mass stars and the low mass stars, millions of years is not that long. So the high mass stars, because they're so high mass, they're going to eventually burn out quicker, okay? The medium mass stars, like our star, the sun, going to go from the gas dust cloud into something like our sun, like a yellow dwarf main sequence type star. And then it's going to expand and cool and turn into a red giant. Not a red supergiant, but a red giant. It's going to shed its outer layers, turn into a planetary nebula. And then from that planetary nebula, it will turn into a white dwarf. And so this will last billions of years with a B. And then last but not least, we've got our low mass stars, okay? Gas and dust cloud to start off, as always, can be a little red dwarf. And it's just always going to be a little red dwarf for trillions of years because it's little, it's not using all of its energy super quick. It's going to conserve its energy and last trillions of years with a T. So that's basically the star's life cycle. The more massive of a star, it's not going to live as long. Less massive the star, it's going to last longer. The red ones are not as hot. They're cooler. The blue ones are super hot. Yellow is kind of in between, okay? Just think of fire. You know, the blue tips on the fire are like the hottest. And then you've got, you know, the yellow and then the orange and then the red. The red is not as hot. I'm also going to put this picture up, this super well-known chart of kind of the colors of stars, the size of stars, some popular stars that fall into those categories. Also, this is how we get the spectral types of stars, O, B, A, F, G, K, M. O being the hottest and M being the coolest. So now let's get into my research of looking up to see what types of stars these stars are, okay? About how long they have lived and how much longer they've got in them. Is it a lot of nothing? I don't know, you can decide that for yourself, but this is my findings. So our star, the sun, is a yellow dwarf main sequence star type G. It's about 4.5 billion years old and it can live up to 10 billion years. So it's lived about 45% of its life. The Pleiades as a whole star cluster is about 100 million years old and it can live 250 million more years, so it's about 40-ish% through its life cycle. This is approximate math that we're doing here, guys. Procyon, 2 billion years old, can live a couple million more years, so like 85% way through its life cycle if I had to put a number on it. Just kind of intuitively. Bellatrix, a star in the Orion constellation, 25 million years and can live 7 million more years. So about 70-ish% way through its life cycle. Rigel, also a star in the Orion constellation, is 8 million years old, can live a few more. So like 95% way through its life cycle. Betelgeuse is another really old one. It's lived for 10 million years and can live up to 100,000 more years. Now, Mintanka is only 3 million years old and can live for a few more million years, so about 30%-ish through its life cycle. Polaris, which is our North Star, is turning into a red supergiant, so in a few thousand years it will be redder. Polaris is about 70 million years old and it can live millions more years, so intuitively I just kind of figured 85% way through its life cycle. I kind of want to pause with a side note because those stars that we've gone over so far, I feel like kind of make sense in terms of the percentage that I gave to them. That's why I gave that percentage, because our star, the sun, the Pleiadian star cluster, those being like 40-45% way through their life cycle just seems accurate because Earth is pretty ancient. If you think about Lemuria, Atlantis, all of these ancient civilizations around the world, not to mention long beforehand when there was all of these elemental beings on Earth. And if you think about the Pleiades, which is a pretty ancient star system in and of itself, lots of stuff going on, super populated still, and was super popular back in the day as well. The sun and the Pleiadian star cluster seem about midway through their life cycle in terms of intuitive energy, popularity of incarnating there. If you think about Orion, some of those stars we are just waiting to explode. And if you think about it intuitively, Orion is old, it's ancient, and right now it's polluted and it's, not really lively right now. So in that sense, those big stars in Orion exploding soon would make sense. Mintanka being thought of to be younger also kind of makes sense now that I think about it, though, because when tuning into certain spirits, certain souls' energies, some are waiting in Mintanka to rebuild Mintanka. But I haven't given a reading for anyone whose, crossway loved ones are waiting in Rigel or Beetlejuice or Bellatrix. I haven't seen that. But I've seen people waiting in Mintanka, so that makes me think Mintanka might be this part of Orion, and maybe some other stars in Orion too that aren't, as big, that didn't have this big, huge Orion empire on them, but some of the smaller stars, the less massive stars that have a longer lifespan, and also weren't these big, super huge stars that all of this, gory stuff is associated with. Mintanka and these other stars might live on, and Orion might make more of a comeback in the future. Polaris, which is making this transition into its later years of its life, makes sense to me because Polaris was not ever really super popular, but people incarnated more back in the day. I feel like people are still incarnating around that star a little bit today, but it's definitely not as popular as it once was. So it kind of transitioning to this new stage of life just makes sense to me. I feel like it's going to be around for a bit longer, but those incarnations aren't taking place as frequently now. Procyon, kind of hurt to hear that it's thought of to be kind of later in its life, because I just love Procyon. People in Procyon tend to have very, specific interests and jobs. Pretty much everyone in Procyon, I feel like, is interested in health, being a doctor, nutrition, fitness, this sort of thing, extending the life expectancy of those, humanoid beings in ethical ways. But I feel like Procyon has been around for a while. It's kind of done its thing. I feel like it definitely has, more years to live, but it's gonna die out before the Pleiades will. So I feel like it does kind of make sense in terms of that percentage that I gave to it. Not really paying attention to how old the star is or how long exactly it has left, but if I look at my percentage that I gave it based on those numbers, it does make sense to me now. Procyon being 2 billion years old and Polaris being 70 million years old, I can't say that quite makes sense to me, but that's in terms of linear time, which is really complicated and you can't exactly measure it like that. Also, Procyon being 2 billion years old, but these stars in Orion, only being 25 million, 10 million, 8 million, 3 million. Like, I would have thought that Orion was much older than Procyon. And, maybe the life around it was much older than the life around Procyon, but Procyon the star might have been older. Even the Pleiades being 100 million years old, but those stars in Orion not being 100 million years old yet, I would have thought Orion was older than the Pleiades. Once again, the life around it could have been, but the stars itself could have been different. Our star, the sun, being 4.5 billion years old, geez, that's like twice the age of Procyon, which seems so much older than all of those other stars that we mentioned thus far. And I feel like the sun, quite honestly, is pretty ancient. But I didn't think it was that ancient compared to these other stars. Like, that is wild. Sirius is 230 million years old and it can live up to 1 billion years. So it is only 25-ish% through its life cycle, which I think is amazing. Sirius seems very ancient, older than the Pleiades, I would say. So I feel like that number kind of makes sense. I would have thought Orion was, about the same age as Sirius, but Sirius, in terms of scientific study, the stars are much older, but it's still being able to be around for 1 billion years does make sense to me, because Sirius is going to continue to be poppin' for a while. This one kind of made me a little sad. So Arcturus is 7.1 billion years old. Wow. For one, that makes sense because it's older than our star, the sun. It's the oldest one we've looked at so far. and it can live another few 100 million years, which that doesn't sound like super long. But then again, that's also like as old as Sirius and the Pleiades are, like a few 100 million years old. But in terms of that, it's like 90-ish% through its life cycle. So that number 90% kind of made me sad. But hey, we've got a few 100 million years left. So that's kind of reassuring that even though that 90% is large, 100 million years is a while. And then we've got Antares, which I thought would have been older, but it is 11 to 12 million years old. So, only like 10% the age of the Pleiades star cluster. Like, it's similar to the age of Orion, which makes sense to me. However, I would have thought that Antares and Orion stars would have been older. Anyways, it can live another million or 1.4 million years, so about 85-ish% way through its life cycle. To me, I would have thought that, Antares was more ancient and it was gonna last longer. I mean, 1.4 million years is a while, but compared to a couple 100 million years, it's not that long. I am kind of surprised by that Antares isn't, a longer life cycle, but it is a red supergiant, so scientifically it makes sense. However, intuitively, it's a little shocking to me because I believe that Antares is this very powerful stargate to Andromeda Galaxy. So to hear that in terms of linear time, that it's probably not even going to make it to when the Milky Way and Andromeda Galaxy merge, I just never would have thought of, but I haven't really envisioned what stars are still going to be around when we merge galaxies. Aldebaran is 6.6 billion years old. Wow. So older than our star, the sun, almost as old as Arcturus. I mean, that makes sense to me because Aldebaran feels very powerful. Aldebaran, I've always thought of as another possible Stargate, but I just haven't dove much into that concept yet. For now, Arcturus and Antares is what I've been calling, like the two main Stargates. But Aldebaran has always felt very powerful to me, like it could potentially be another Stargate, either already currently or possibly in the future. Speaking of its future, it can live another few 100 million years, so it's like 90% way through its life cycle-ish, but another few 100 million years is a long time, so keep that into consideration. And then Altair, 100 million years old, originally thought of to be a billion. Now that is what irks me. Why was it originally thought of to be a billion years old? This is the only star that I researched that said, it was originally thought of to be a billion years old, but now we're saying it's only 100 million years old. Why is that? The reason why it irks me is because of Altair's galactic history, the negative things that went on there that led to that star's ascension. So I thought that was really weird. I get that, a while ago, it was hard to figure out how old certain stars were scientifically. I understand that, but it's just weird to me that they literally put it like that when you're researching this on Google and EcoScia. That was just weird. Intuitively, I was like, what? What in the world? So 100 million years, that's what, as old as the Pleiadian star cluster. I feel like that kind of makes sense. However, a billion years would also make sense. Can live 2 billion years. I don't know if that's in addition to what it's already lived. So if it's halfway through for real, if it really is a billion and it can only live 2 billion, it could be 50% way through, or it could be more like less than 10% way through its life cycle. However, I feel like it lived a long time before this like ascension happened, but I feel like it's also going to be this, high vibe star that people aren't really incarnated around physically, but it's more of an angelic headquarters. Aldebaran and Altair, I feel like, are kind of angelic headquarter stars, could also potentially be a stargate. Tau Ceti is a G-type main sequence star in the constellation Cetus. It's a yellow star that's similar in size and brightness to our star, the sun, which I did not know before. It's only about 12 light years away from Earth. It's about 78% the sun's mass. It's about 92% of the sun's temperature. So Tau Ceti is 4.4 to 12 billion years old. It's kind of a wide range there. And it can live up to 20 billion years. So it's about 45-50% way through its life cycle. That does give me hope that, hey, it can make a comeback. And also the fact that it's really similar to our star, the sun, just kind of makes sense to me now that I know that information, that, hey, there can be life similar to humans on Earth around Tau Ceti. And even though it was popping back in the day and it had this kind of dull period, it can make a comeback and be popping again. I just wonder why, why certain stars that incarnation wise, spiritually, intuitively, feel like it was popular and then not, and then is going to be popular again. Like, I wanted to know what was going on in its life cycle during those times, but we just honestly do not have the scientific research to really say what is happening with it. I could definitely intuitively tap into it more. I mean, just based off of my own intuition, I feel like the reason is just kind of the area of space it was moving through during those times, kind of even within the star's life cycle. Maybe it was going through these big changes, these transitions, or maybe the elements within the literal physical star were just being kind of weird, not readily available in that area of space that it was traveling through, so it wasn't doing its usual thing or something. Just kind of Sid's thoughts there. Anyways, let's talk about Fomalhaut, because this is like the first one I really thought of where I was like, I need to research this to see what's up, to see if the science backs up the spirituality. But it's difficult because this involves time, and that is not linear, but this measurement of time is. So it's kind of tricky. Don't think it disproves my feelings towards this intuitively. However, it's just interesting information and it's not what I expected, so I'm going to be honest about it. So Fomalhaut is 440 million years old, thought of to be at least, and it can live up to 1 billion years. So it's only like 50% way through its life cycle. It's not like 90, 95, 100% way through its life cycle like I would have assumed. So does this mean that Fomalhaut is in this weird transitional stage in its star's life cycle and it might make a comeback, but that's not even like written in its soul contract, if you will, like it is for Lyra and Vega and Tau Ceti? I don't know. But yeah, that's not what I expected for Fomalhaut. I expected it to be about that old, but I didn't think it was going to live on for so much longer. So let's talk about Vega. Vega is 450 million years old, which pause, because that's only a tad older than Fomalhaut, and I would have thought Vega was billions of years old. I would have thought it was older than the sun, But it's 450 million years old, and it can live another 450 million years. So scientifically, it is 50-ish% way through its life cycle. So that does not surprise me. Like, it is going to live on for so much longer. What does surprise me is that it's only in the millions of years old range, though. It's not into the billions. 50-ish% way through its life cycle makes sense to me, though, because, like I said, I think Vega is going to make a massive comeback pretty soon. However, the star Sulfat is estimated to have ceased fusing hydrogen in its core about 150,000 years ago. In about 200,000 years, Sulfat will become an orange giant. It will eventually end its life as a white dwarf, a dense, shrunken star about the size of Earth. Sulfat is estimated to be about 150,000 years old, which is not nearly as old as I thought it was. Eldafar is estimated to be about 30 million years old. So not nearly as old as Vega, either of those. Just wanted to check out of curiosity. I find that pretty interesting, just kind of weird that, these stars in the constellation of Lyra and the stars in the constellation of Orion are not nearly as old as I would have thought them to be, scientifically at least. Anyways, let's talk about Algol. So Algol is 570 million years old, can live another 100 million years, so 65-ish% way through its life. ish. I did an amazing video on Algol tapping in to that star, galactic history, the vibe of it intuitively. I'm really proud of myself for that video. It's probably the video that I'm most proud of gaining that information to for the video because someone recommended it to me. So anyways, I'm gonna leave that video linked in the description of this video as well. Specific stars in the Pleiadian star cluster, you know, they're all about 100 million years old, but Merope is estimated to be 100 million, Pleione 100 million, Electra 115 million, and then Taygeta 625 million years old. So it's like the oldest one I can think of that I researched, at least in that star cluster. So yeah, I researched some stars that I am the most familiar with in terms of galactic history and giving people readings, all of that good stuff. That's what my findings were, so I hope you guys found this video interesting. What do you think? Do you think there's a correlation in terms of linear time between, you know, the scientific star's age and then the star's kind of galactic history? Or do you think it's deeper than that and you really can't measure it in terms of Earth human years? Or maybe you can, but the information online about how old they are just not accurate. Let me know what you think. A lot of it actually makes sense to me, but there's a few things like the age of the stars in Lyra, the age of the stars in Orion, I would have thought of to be much older. Even Antares, I would have thought of to be much older. But Arcturus being super ancient makes sense to me. I don't want this video to be too long. Just let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Please email me at sydalexandriaegypt@gmail.com if you guys are interested in getting an Akashic Records reading with me, or a qhht or bqh, which is like a past life regression hypnosis session where you can relive scenes from past lives. Instead of me tapping into it for you, you can do it yourself, and I am just a guide to help you relax to get there. Love you guys so much, and peace out.